Hi, welcome to MJT Law. This is our podcast. My name is Melanie Thorley and this is Christy Santana and we're solicitors at MJT Law. Right, today I want to talk about workers' comp.
Go on.
It's not really, it's not an area of law that we do an awful lot of work in, but it's a matter close to my heart as a business owner. So I was looking...
it's the dreaded term for every employer.
Workers' compensation, work cover.
It's such a polarising particular issue.
Oh my God.
I reckon it's got to be one of the most polarising between employees and employers.
Yeah, employers are like, oh, well, I just, suck it up. And employees are like, well, I got injured at work, I have a right to. And I'm not necessarily talking about the physical injuries.
Yeah.
I think, quite honestly, if you get physically injured at work for whatever reason, and maybe I'm not talking about paper cuts, but, maybe a paper cut that gets infected and you lose your finger, maybe, but... Well, on a different subject, did you know that there is 20% of people in America, there's 2,000 people die every year from stationery?
Hang on.
It's some crazy figure.
So I'm just trying to think, it's got to not be paper cuts, right? It's got to be...
staples in the eye.
Staples in the eye. So, who's shooting the staples around the joint?
I have no idea. But I came across these statistics years ago.
What?
It really is quite insane.
I'm just trying to think of a single other stationary related injury.
Stationary. I don't know, maybe a whole pile of copy paper falls on you. I have no idea.
Maybe it was just one singular large event of stationary. 2,000 people at the paper storage, and they're just kind of all.
I don't know. But yeah, so set aside the exorbitant number of deaths each year from stationary, which is clearly a dangerous thing to have in the office. So I'm not necessarily talking about these physical injuries, at work, but. CCH published something really recently about a bunch of work cover cases, and they all kind of tweaked my imagination. Socialising and dinner severed the connection with employment on a work trip. So this one was an injury fall at a hotel where the worker was staying while attending a work conference, and it was decided it wasn't compensatable because of the duration between the work thing and what happened next. Apparently, there were 8 hours of socialising after a day at the conference.
So, when they say socialising, is that their political way of saying they were on the drink?
I think they're on the sauce, yeah. I haven't read the case.
8 hours of socialising, which is a lovely way of saying it, on a conference.
Well, let's think about this.
And he's taken a fall downstairs or something.
Severs the road. And this is I really like this one because what's happened here is we've got conference finishes at 5 o'clock.
Yeah, probably.
And now we're 3 in the morning. Or what are we?
Yeah, hang on. What's the timeline here? Because 8 hours after.
Yeah. So what's that? 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning.
What conference finishes for this to fall into a acceptable timeline? What conference finishes at 12?
I have no idea, but to be fair, I was thinking about this. I attended a Alpna conference a few years ago when it was in Sydney, and we had this dinner there, and it was one of these, dress up dinners, and it was a Hawaiian theme. It was all very fun. It was very, very fun. It started at 6 or 7 o'clock. We got our mains at about 9:30.
Jeez, that's late.
And we got our desserts. I left before we got dessert, and I left at 11:45. So I think there are possibilities where you could be doing something related to work and it still be part of the event. I mean, obviously this is not that, but it just tweaked my imagination. You're at work, you're at a work conference, and then what? You start drinking for 8 hours? What's the deal here? They did say dinner. Sorry, they did say socialising and dinner. So they've gone out to dinner.
So
they've gone
dinner
out
and drinks, but then it's drinks and drinks and drinks.
Yeah. It's like going to the Gold Coast for a bender.
Pretty much. I mean, this is just a work-sponsored bender, essentially. But you can see the problem here is, though, there are legitimate times when there is drinking and work in the same thing.
Yes.
For example, what you just said there.
Yes. Yeah, or drinks after work and it happens to be in the workplace.
Yeah.
Or drinks after work and it's next door.
Happens all the time. But where does it finish? Like, where does work stop and fun begin?
Well, the question I've got is, what the hell is this employee doing, taking it all the way to court? Surely, at some point, as an adult, you take responsibility for your own actions.
And we know that doesn't.
If you're on an...
We know that's not...
I mean, come on. If you're... and when we talk
universal trait.
When we talk about, when work cover is useful, and when isn't this taking the piss as an employee?
Of course it is.
Absolutely,
of course it is. If you get on the drink too much and you fall down a set of stairs...
why are you blaming work?
Well, because you can. I'm sure he tried to blame the hotel at the same time. This probably wasn't all, and they probably said, he should have cut me off hours ago. And I mean, he may have done this as some way of trying to defend against the fact that he's probably going to get fired.
Well, yeah.
I think you'd be looking to fire someone who got so drunk that they got injured on a work conference representing your company.
But at what point does okay, let's take a different point of view then. I mean, I agree. I think, the worker who's gone on an 8-hour socialisation then blames work when they hurt themselves. I think that's excessive. I think that's really actually quite naughty. But surely as employers we need to be more responsible about this. Why are we thinking that it's okay for our employees to be doing this? What point should we be taking responsibility and telling people they're not allowed to do that? I mean,
so perfect world.
Yeah.
Perfect world. How do you defend against this?
Well, you put a policy in place that says, blah, 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 drinking to excess is inappropriate while on work events, so on and so forth. And then you try to enforce it, obviously. The trouble is...
That's all very reactive,
who's going to enforce that? Because... for those of you that don't know, I actually don't drink alcohol, and there's this weird thing in Australia that people don't trust people who don't drink alcohol, but let's set that weirdness aside. So I don't drink alcohol and I still go out there and have fun. What I don't understand is an employer who puts a policy in place that says, they're the fun police? Do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know.
Well, I actually think if this becomes an issue, I actually don't think I have too many issues with taking steps further.
Yeah?
Being less trusting, more prescriptive.
Okay.
And I know you shouldn't treat adults as children.
What, you're saying you're only allowed 2 drinks in the night and stuff like that? Is that where you're going with this?
I am going somewhere similar. And I kind of think back to a lot of high schools have this, where you are not, at least the school I'm in, you are not to wear your uniform outside of the school. You are not to, if you go to a party, which they already say you shouldn't do.
Don't wear your school tie.
No, don't wear school bags, no ties, no hats, no nothing. Basically sever all ties.
Yeah, so we can't identify what school you're at when you're being a pork chop.
They also do things like you're to leave the school grounds before, 4:30. You're not allowed to linger because they don't want you to be represented. Because if you're a kid out the front of school, chance are you're from the school.
You're getting up to mischief too.
So I think if it was such an issue, you could go things like you are to only have a certain amount of drinks, you are to leave the venue by a certain hour, and then this is still all behind the capsules, don't be drunk, don't be an idiot.
Yeah, so we're talking about work events where a workplace will be able to dictate what you can and cannot do during that time. Yeah. So you are being the fun police, but it's for
you're there for work, you're not there for fun.
I'm just saying.
I absolutely am being the fun police.
Sorry.
But we see this all the time.
Yeah, I agree.
Work conferences. There are 2 things that get us employment lawyers a lot of work.
Oh, yes.
Is work conferences and Christmas parties.
Oh, yes. Bless those Christmas
parties. And
parties.
as great as we're lawyers, we like work, but they are problems.
They are the mischief-making events.
Mischief-making events. And if you don't want mischief, which most employers don't, especially you have to be the fun police.
Especially if you have a workforce of, say, between 20 and 35.
Yeah.
Where everyone's just out there to have a good time. I know at this Alpner event, there was discussion about there being an Alpner event in the Gold Coast. And they're 3-day events. Essentially, you can go sort of in the afternoon on day one, and then it's all day Tuesday, all day Wednesday. Or so, you know what I mean. It's actually not on Tuesday and Wednesday, but you know what I mean. And
Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
So it's like Thursday, Friday are the big days.
Yeah.
So you have your fancy dinner on the Thursday night, but people look at them as a time to go, oh, Gold Coast, excellent, party. I'm like, you're representing your employer.
Yeah.
They may well be paying for this. So,
it's
dudes.
You're blurring the lines so much by doing these things and not making it abundantly clear that this is not an event to be having fun. And I think it kind of goes towards, we've spoken about this in the past in one of our last podcasts about what motivates employees to continue working there. And I am personally, and I think I've seen kind of stats to back this up, people like to say that the reason they stay is because of the environment.
Nice.
Right?
Lovely place to work.
But what they are really saying is that they don't want a negative environment, right?
That's true.
They don't want something that's toxic. That will kick people out of an organisation. But they're not staying there because they have a very positive environment.
No. Yeah, I see what you mean.
The fact that you're providing all this fun, I think, is really down the list. I think if you're cracking down being a bit of a fun police, I can't see people running to the doors.
Well, this is it, because there's not an expectation that your employer's going to be the fun party, whatever the fun police opposite is,
you're not
the fun organiser, because workplace isn't about organising parties.
No, it's not. And
so not doing it is not going to cause you distress in the workplace. Talking about employees taking the piss when it comes to work cover, and look, that might be a bit controversial, I don't know.
It's a pretty common.
I've got a list of things here. I just think it's hilarious. So this one is a shock redundancy, was unreasonable management action. A worker will be compensated for his major depressive episode, which he suffered when he found out that his job was redundant upon returning from long-term sick leave. So I've not read any of these cases, by the way. All I've read is exactly what I've read out. So that's all I know. But I'm looking at this going,
geez, that's
what?
opening the gates a little bit.
You got what? You got some guy who's been off sick for, forever, and then he's shocked that they found another way to do his job. Like, what?
And he's trying to say he's so distressed by it.
By the fact he's been made redundant. And I'm going to stretch this out a bit. We've got, and I'm going to be super naughty here, and I'm going to talk about pregnant women. Okay, so a woman gets pregnant. She has, depending on the situation, they're normally entitled to take a year off, unpaid leave, and in certain circumstances it can be extended. And it's 9 months down the track after they've been off for 9 months, a business works out how to do that job without them, and they get made redundant. Where's the shock there?
No, I mean, we see it a lot. And then I certainly have some sympathy. I certainly have some sympathy.
Sympathy.
But
a work cover claiming
maybe not a work cover claim.
Non-genuine redundancy because I'm on, or discrimination because I'm on leave. I mean,
it's a touchy area.
It is. Look,
but I think I certainly have some sympathy. But I think it's an issue that I'm not sure has a solution, to be honest. I'm not certain you can have your cake and eat it. And
please don't write in 1,000 letters about how you are able to have your career and be pregnant, and we know all the issues involved in this.
Plenty of people do it successfully. I mean, that's true.
I'm just talking about those.
But they also take a lot of kind of sacrifices.
Yeah, I'm just talking about these businesses who haven't replaced this person, that they've figured out ways to do it without them, and then 9 months later they realise that actually they can do it without the salary as well. Happy days.
But this kind of extends to other things. I mean, a lot of people are scared to take sick leave for a very similar issue. Where,
they might realise that their job is worthless.
Either the job is worthless or they're not good at their job.
Ah, yes. Yes, and we get an awful lot of clients coming to us when someone's away on holiday.
How often is that?
And realise that they've got up to mischief because they're doing the job. And
they're doing that job for them and they go, hang on.
Yeah, but those people deserve to be fired, surely. We're talking about people who don't necessarily deserve to be fired, but find themselves without a job by circumstance.
By pure circumstance.
By being long-term sick or by being pregnant. And there are the females out there who take their year off. Absolutely, it's an absolute right. I'm not saying they shouldn't do it. The business maybe goes through and leaves their job open. They come back, they get pregnant again maybe within 8 or 9 months of. So we're now talking about 18 months from the first baby, which is not unheard of. And then they take another year off. I mean, at what point are you asking your employer to keep a job open, which they might not need to keep open, just because that employer is afraid of a discrimination claim?
Well, don't you think this is more a problem with our social services rather than our employment? I mean, someone has to pay for all this to kind of.
But business is paying for it.
And that's probably the problem is, should they be the one to be paying for it?
Well, from a personal perspective, if the job is worth something and it exists, I've got a small business, and I always say, and my team hear me say this a lot, every person in my small business is worth something. They're all worth something, because I wouldn't have the position if it didn't exist, if it wasn't worth something.
Yeah.
So, nobody's just a secretary, no one's just a this. Everyone's...
I think you've always said this to us, I think you even once got cranky at me where I said I was just something.
Yeah.
And it's really good kind of
and no one,
for everyone out there. Don't ever call yourself or
just
accept others something just.
Yeah, you're not powering down your position, because you're an important person in that business. Everybody's an important person in that business. So if, say, someone goes off work for a year and I get someone physically in to do that job, and then that person comes back, happy days. But if I'm in a small business and I am going, okay, well, let's just figure out how we can get around this for the next year, and then realise actually things are running smoothly and we don't need that role, then that's just the way life is. That's just how small business works. I can't comment. I've never ran a very large business where there's lots and lots of teams and managers and lots of stuff going on. All I can comment is on how I run my small business. But I just don't see that as discrimination. I don't see that as, and I don't understand why pregnant women complain about that, because surely, I mean, I know they want their job to be there when they come back, and being pregnant is important and so on and so forth. But I understand the complaint.
Well, I can tell you as someone who's in an age group where, a lot of people I know are kind of
thinking about
it. They're not there yet, but they're thinking about it. And I can tell you that for most women, this is absolutely on the front of their mind.
Really?
They're not ignorant about it.
Right. That they might lose their jobs if they get pregnant.
Absolutely. And their sort of career decisions at my age, which for a lot of people my sort of experience is thinking about what the next 5 to 10 years looks like. We've kind of just started, maybe just starting to establish ourselves in the industry or they happen to be in. And now they're thinking about kind of next steps about what your 30s might look like.
Yeah, how to get the whole package.
Yeah. And I can tell you that it's absolutely in most of their minds about, for example, I know a girl who recently moved from a small business to a large business, took a pay cut, took I'm going to call it a position cut.
Did some sort of lateral move that
which is not as, her position is not as good as she was, but she absolutely did it because she knew that the small business simply wouldn't be able to support her through having children. And it's as I said, it's absolutely not ignorant about it. But do you want to know my hot take on the whole situation?
Go on.
I think the pay gap, the position gap, all of that sort of stuff would be absolutely rectified if we allowed men to take exactly the same amount of leave.
Oh my God, I'm fully on board with this. I don't understand this concept that of these gender roles. The amount of women that I meet who say things like, "Oh, I would always stay at home when my kid is sick. I wouldn't expect dad to do that." And I'm like, why the hell not? What the hell's wrong with this family that dad can't actually take some time off?
And it may very well be because he didn't take time off when he was first kind of born, or the child was first born. And I suppose a sort of personal background to me. So my mum was, quite kind of high up in the position that she was. When she had me, she worked the day I was born. So she had a meeting in the morning, did a final handovers, had me in the afternoon.
Yeah.
It was all very scheduled, apparently.
Yes.
And she went back to work a month later.
Right.
Now that's seen as quite rapid.
Yeah.
But the only reason she was able to do that was because my dad was a business owner at the time, and he has ultimate flexibility about his work.
So he took that traditional gender role of the mum.
What he did was, in his business, he hired someone that he knew to take his job for like 6 months. So he gave himself maternity leave.
Parental leave. Yeah.
And that allowed it. But that wouldn't have happened if dad was not. Let's say he was in a different position. He wasn't a
But he could have
business
just.
owner.
I mean, here in Australia,
If he had no leave, he has to either quit or, what else was, if he was just a normal
But you
job.
weren't in Australia for that, were you?
No.
No. So here in Australia, certainly these days, all you have to do to get access to parental leave is to be the primary caregiver. You don't have to be the mum.
Okay.
You can give birth to the baby and get yourself back to work, do the healing stage. I have, whatever that looks like. But as long as, the dad can just take all that time off. There's nothing stopping him from doing that. The legislation isn't prescriptive about, that. It just says whoever's the primary caregiver, whoever has care of the child. And if dad is, I don't understand it. Why, I'm going to get on a little bit of a soapbox here. I don't understand the gender role here. Why do I come across woman after woman after woman who say, I would never, ask dad to stay at home when the kid's sick? What's wrong with that question? What is wrong with the positive answer? What is wrong with asking dad to take that role? I'm not even talking about stepping up, because it's not babysitting when it's your own kid.
Yes.
I just don't get my head around this.
It's a tough one. Although...
But is it a tough one? Why is it a tough one? Why is this hard?
Well, because we're going against thousands of years of kind of social norms, but I actually think it's turning around a lot quicker than you think.
It's not turning around quick enough in my views.
Well, look, it's not going to be... Not while either of us are alive. But the fact is, when I speak to my mates about it, none of them would turn a nose at being a stay-at-home dad.
But maybe they're not turning their noses up. Maybe it's the mum who's creating this sort of flurry around needing to be around their sick child. And actually, it's not dad who's saying no. It's mum not giving the option.
It could be both.
And what's wrong with the females here that they're not creating an environment where dad can actually be more involved in these things?
Well, it's a social problem, and unfortunately, it does leak into employment.
That's right. So, women end up dealing with their careers in completely different ways to guys.
Well, I think it unfortunately probably begins before they even have it. That girl I just mentioned is a prime example. She has probably taken a backward step overall. For
a future goal that doesn't necessarily...
And I am not really certain a guy would have taken that same step. I don't think...
I see what you mean. I'm not
For example,
taking...
I wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, I'm thinking about my future. I know in the future I can see children. I know in this particular role, they're not going to like me to take 6 months off looking after my own kid, and this is as a male.
Yeah.
Therefore, I'm going to find a different position that's going to enable me to do that in the future.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think people...
It starts beginning. I mean, she's already kind of diverted from...
Yeah. I think you're right. I think men aren't looking at it from that perspective.
It's just...
But it always amazes me.
Which is crazy though, because it's obviously equally in your future. I mean, it takes two to tango.
But you see children in your future? No.
Ooh. I don't know. Honestly,
Mum and Dad, please don't listen to this. I'm sure you.
I've spoken to them about it. They've, Mum said, "Oh, when are you having grandchildren?" I said, "Mum, not in a very long time. It's not on the cards."
You have a brother, right? I mean, he can have kids.
He's the exact same as me. By the way.
As bad as each other.
The decent side of line might just kind of die off with us. Honestly, the more and more I think about it, the more and more I think.
Maybe not.
It's just such a financial drain.
Oh my god!
And maybe I'm too much of a stinge or something, but
this is the reason why. Well, not this is the reason. Paul and I didn't have children because we didn't want them. We like each other too much. We didn't want anything to get in the way of our relationship. We were just too much into each other, and we didn't see having children to be any way going to improve our lifestyles.
And that's kind of where I am.
And I can tell you that I've had an amazing life with my husband. We've been married almost 17 years. We absolutely adore each other. And, we wake up every morning by saying, good morning, lover, lover. We go to bed every night by saying, good night, lover, lover. We have an amazing relationship. Now, I don't know what that would be like with children, but I can tell you that we didn't have children because we wanted to keep that relationship intact. It's an insanely selfish decision. But
selfish is interesting.
But yeah, who the hell gives a shit, right? So it's my decision.
I think there's enough people on earth.
But I wanted to be able to eat sweets while cooking. I wanted to be able to go, let's just go out to the shops right now. I wanted to be able to.
I haven't even thought about that.
I wanted to be able to just I just wanted to be able to.
I like having KFC midweek.
That's right.
I've forgotten that you're not allowed to do that as a parent.
That's right. I like snacking while I'm cooking. I like staying up and watching stupid television shows without having to worry about the kids waking up.
Oh my God.
There's a lot of things I like to do that I know that you cannot do as a parent.
Here I am just thinking about the big stuff. Like, I like going on big trips and stuff. No. I haven't even thought about the little stuff.
Yeah, going out, getting a coffee, waking up at 9 o'clock in the morning, or not, as the case may be, or just deciding on a whim that you're going to go down the Gold Coast for the day. You know how long it takes to get kids together. Yeah, I like all those things. I like going to Paul. Let's have dinner tonight. Let's go out for dinner tonight, or let's just the easy things in life. Let's get to work early. Let's come home from work early. Let's, without having to worry about picking up children or what's going on with the school, or, going on holiday whenever we want, not having to wait for school holidays, and just shit, everyday shit.
I am. This is. I haven't even thought about these things. Honestly, I have not even thought about all the little things I do in my life that I would never be able to do.
Wouldn't be able to ride a motorbike around.
Because, I said to you the other day, I just went and rode down to the Byron Bay for the day.
That's right.
All day. I don't think I'd be able to get away with that.
No, you wouldn't be able to ride a motorbike around because you'd have someone to take somewhere.
I wonder though, I've always thought about this.
But your parents got away with it. They had fun.
Well, not necessarily. They always say because they were both the oldest of their kind of siblings, and when their siblings then had my cousins or their kids, they used to always ask my parents about, can you babysit them because you want to go out and do something. Yeah. And my parents used to get real angry at them because they said, when our kids were young, first 5-6 years of their life, we didn't do anything. No. We just got on with it.
Yeah. Actually, it doesn't sound very much fun at all.
It doesn't sound very fun. And they knew it wasn't fun. And they'll admit it's not fun. But they did it. And that's kind of part of being a parent. So don't come to them and ask them to so you can get the best of both worlds. It's kind of one or the other.
Don't get us wrong. We know people who have children who think their children are awesome. I get that. But what about the little things? The tiny little things?
Oh, jeez.
You want to play video games in the middle of the day. You want to watch a movie at 10 o'clock in the morning. I'm a big fan. Those who've been watching podcasts will know that I like watching insanely B, C, D grade movies. And I watched a really good one over the weekend, by the way. And I do that when I get up, I make myself hot chocolate, it's about 9 o'clock in the morning, and I sit down and watch an entire movie at 9 o'clock in the morning.
True, and that's just...
And that wouldn't be impossible. It would be impossible with children.
Jeez. I wonder if, like, for the viewers out there, so in a previous life I used to be a family lawyer, and I saw the full range. And I've always thought that after I worked there, in that area, my view on relationships changed significantly.
Okay, yeah.
Where, from what my experience, children and finances are the absolute number one reasons why people break up.
Yeah.
We used to see it all the time. They used to be, couple were together 5, 6, 7 years, from all
different areas,
and
socioeconomic groups.
Didn't really matter.
Yeah.
And from all reports, they were going well. And as you can imagine, you don't go 7 years without, liking the other person.
That's right.
But then they'd have a kid, and within 6 months, they're
oh my gosh.
Like it's really fast.
You got some baby. Who looks after it? Who's left with the baby?
From what I used to ask them,
I'm sure you're not allowed
what
to
they
say
used to
that.
tell me, the conflict started almost instantly.
Well, but who's left with the kid?
Because people would just... It's such an attack on the way of life.
Yeah.
That their life has changed so much. And then it also kind of flips around as well. And I think this is almost a sad one, where a lot of people either break up really soon after the child is born, first 2 years, or when you see a lot of older people actually getting divorced. It's what has happened. They might have had 2, 3 kids. They've now been married, let's say 20, 25 years. Yeah. And their last kid has now moved out. Yeah. So, the kid's, 19, 20, something like that.
Yeah.
And they're now left in their nice big house. And it's empty. It's just the two of them.
Yeah.
And they have not been... It's just the two of them, which has not been the case for 20 years.
Yeah.
20 plus years, really.
So they don't have a relationship together.
And they realise they don't know the other person.
Yeah.
They actually don't know this person anymore. And they realise the only reason they were together still was because of the kids.
Well, the only thing that bound them.
Kind of a bond.
Yeah. And I actually see this.
It's really sad.
I think that's the social norm, I think. You have these children which become your entire life. And when they're gone, all of a sudden all you've got left is this other person whom you haven't had a proper relationship with for 15 years.
Like it's not a small amount of time.
And you look at that and go, who the hell are you? I just... actually, that makes me feel sad. And this is one of the reasons why Paul and I guess, didn't have children. We never saw children in our future for a start. Separately, we never saw children. But together, we were too into each other. We didn't want to break that relationship. And I'm sure there are people out there who say you can have both. And that's probably absolutely true. And that could have been true for Paul and I don't know. But we chose the other route. And we chose to be around each other instead of having something else come into our lives. Which has actually been really interesting recently. Because those of you who know that we have 2 cats. And we've had 2 cats for a couple of years. And the last 3 months we've introduced a dog into our little family. Yeah. Although I don't see myself as the cat's or dog's mum, I see them as their owner. I don't have that parental...
They're technically property.
I don't see a parental relationship there. I know that people talk about the dogs as being the dog has been I'm the mum, but I don't see that. But the dog has taken a lot of our brain space, which was something I didn't actually anticipate. Right now it's getting fixed, and it's in the back of my mind. The dog's going and having an operation. It takes a lot of brain space, and it sits there on the sofa with us. And I'm like, this and we have to think about what we're going to do when we go. Like, we can just walk out the door, obviously. Yeah. There's no issue there. But if we go away for a weekend, we have to now find someone to babysit our 3 pets. And Paul has got this thing about taking them to catteries and boarding houses. And I know they're all very nice. And I know they're absolutely wonderful places, that Paul doesn't like them. Yeah. So we now have to find someone who's going to house sit So hang out at our house while we're not there. And that's all perfectly fine. But that's closer to having children than we've ever been.
Yeah, probably.
And we've been married 17 years and we're now introducing this kind of thing into our world that we're still trying to train. Like every Sunday morning we go off and do dog training.
Which is like imagine that time
like
training.
football.
Like, yeah, you're taking your kid to football. Yeah.
We don't have to go though, to be fair. You know, with football you've got some kid going, Mum, football, or something along those lines. Or you're pressuring your kid to do homework. I actually don't care if the dog doesn't eat that night. If he doesn't want to eat, it's fine with me. You know, if he doesn't want to play outside, I'm good. If he doesn't want to play with the other dogs, I'm actually okay. So there's a lot about parenting that I don't have to deal with. But yeah, it takes from a...
It's somewhat all-encompassing.
Yeah, so from a relational side of things, it has taken up a lot of kind of our
brain
time.
space.
Yeah, our brain space. Not to mention, we've spent a lot of money on this dog.
Well, that's also the thing. I mean, as I've started getting older, I find out how expensive kids are.
Oh my God, kids are so expensive.
And I've become more and more grateful for what my parents did, but... I
heard it was $1 million by the time the kid's like 18.
Probably. Well, I didn't realise this, for example. If you want to enrol your kid into, soccer, as, kids do, it's like $1,600 for the...
What? What? I can't believe...
And I'm like,
what?
hang on.
Don't you have a backyard?
You know what I said to them, though? And I find this flabbergasting, and by the way, it is kind of a controversial issue in Australian sport at the moment, but all the coaches are volunteers. You still pay for the refs each week. Like,
where's the money?
Parents still have to pay $5 a game.
Oh, so they're also paying for the refs to turn up.
Yeah, so like the ref is collecting actually
a couple $100 or something.
$100. They're just teenagers.
So you just throw your money. So hang on, this is a gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, my understanding pretty much is the money is 100% goes to insurance.
Oh, okay.
Which is just absolutely crazy. It's
stuff. A lot of insurance.
And so that's for one season. A lot of kids have 2 seasons of sport a year, as in
or they might play 2 sports.
Summer sport, winter sport. That's one kid. 2 kids you're looking at insurance for all these kids as well, for their health insurance and all sorts of crazy stuff. Like
you know what I found out fairly recently? Nera, our practice manager who's resigned recently, she was talking about having children, and we were talking about private schools, schools that you have to pay to get into. So in England they're called public schools, or boarding schools. And apparently when you put your child's name on the waiting list, you're also paying an annual fee to have it there.
Yeah, to keep your spot. It's a big money making scheme.
It's free money.
Yeah.
You're doing actually nothing. That kid is not going to be old enough to get into that school until they're 12. So that's possibly 12 years of just sitting on a database, actually doing nothing, that they're gaining an income from.
Yeah, schools are a big industry.
Oh my goodness. The schools are not about teaching students. They're about something else.
Well, I know that the school that I went to, when I was there, they have parent-teacher kind of committee, which all the parents, I think, but from all reports, it's more akin to attending a shareholders
right.
And it was decided when I was there that they would diversify their income stream such that they would no longer ever require a student to ever attend. I know this sounds crazy.
It sounds about right.
But they basically wanted to earn enough money from other things that...
They could run the school without the kids.
They could run the school without the kids. They don't need...
the income from the kids.
They don't need school fees. And I believe, according to... Because as an old boy, you kind of still get stuff from them. I believe just recently they've just achieved it.
Well, that's amazing.
They own a couple apartment block, like towers.
So hang on, the school is independently wealthy.
Yes,
essentially.
It's kind of own company.
Does it do? Okay, I actually don't care about that. You know, the school can make as much money as they like, but do they actually also do the other thing? Like when I was living in England and I was a governess, I had some charges that went to Eton. And Eton's one of these really, really famous schools in England.
They wear the robe.
They wear the tails, yeah. They're not allowed to wear tails outside of the school grounds, similar to your rules. But anyways, these are Polar rules. But they also have an amazing scholarship scheme where you don't actually have to be wealthy at all to go. And in fact, probably about 20 or 30% of the cohort is funded by these scholarships. So does that school, who is also independently wealthy, provide that?
Well, they're still owned by an organisation above them all, which is it's a non-for-profit organisation. So the money a lot of it gets filtered back into this particular school, because you can imagine parents will get a little bit iffy about those.
That's right. Who's profiting from that?
Who's profiting? But a lot of it is to then be dispersed into less profitable, not profitable is probably not the right word, but less kind of expensive and big schools. So this organisation runs a lot of schools. So this money goes up to the top and then redistributed, because they can't take the money out.
No, it'd be like a trust, right?
It's like a trust. They're a non-for-profit. They can't take, they don't have shareholders. Yeah. The shareholders can't just take the money out and things like that.
Yeah.
So it does get redistributed. But it's
fascinating.
It's just fascinating. But when we think about, though, both of us kind of have a similar viewpoint on having kids. And I wonder if it's because we're kind of both lawyers. Having children, I think, is a risk. When I think about what I want kind of my life to be like, I often think, it sounds really lame, but I kind of just like
the way it is.
I like what I've got.
Yeah.
And
is that about risk, though? Because I think anybody who knows me won't say that I'm risk adverse. So I'm not sure it's about risk more than about what I know I want. And I know that I don't necessarily want what comes with children.
Yeah, I suppose you know more. I mean, you were a governor, so you know.
Oh, it's 15 years, yeah.
But mine is kind of purely going into the unknown.
Yeah.
I'd rather what I've got. I'd rather the devil I know than the devil I don't. And
people say they like their children, though, once they get them. I would never live without my kids.
That's really risky, though. Because once it happens, it's done. There's no going back from it.
You can't give a child back.
You can't, no. So,
well, you can go. You're a male. Surely you can.
No, you just...
give it to mum and walk away.
See you later. Change your name and change your number and disappear and be a terrible father. Live your life in shame. But it just seems risky to me. It just seems really I like what I've got.
Yeah, there's a lot of risk when it comes to children, isn't there? What if the child isn't what you wanted it to be?
Yeah. What if the life is not the life that you want? What if you end up as a divorcee and your life's really miserable? Yeah,
giving up something.
You know?
It's actually really scary. I didn't live my life risk-free, but I didn't want what children was going to offer me.
Yeah.
I just didn't see the value in that. Now, please don't give me 1,000 emails about how valuable children are. But I think just pushing past that, I don't think you're alone in this concept that children are a bit out of what their person wants. But we are a reducing society. We're not increasing our numbers. So we actually need more immigration. We need more people coming here with more children to grow this.
Or else we're doomed.
Without immigration, we've got problems.
I think it's Japan. It's 1.6.
Yeah, it's not enough. I think it needs to be 2.4
per family. Yeah.
So. I think there's a magic figure that I learned at university. It was something like 2.4, and we're nowhere near it.
I wonder whether I am the outlier or whether
I don't think so. I actually don't think so. If we're reducing population, we're not making as many Australians as we ought to be, then how can you possibly be the outlier? You're right. Outlier. It doesn't feel like it because no one talks about it.
Yeah.
No one says, I actually don't want anything to do with children. I think I don't see any intrinsic value in them, so I'm not going to do it.
But how many people do we also know that I do feel really bad for them. They've made that decision and good, that's their own views. The minister doesn't want kids. Then they get to a certain age. It's like early 30s.
They might want children.
No, they're steadfast in it, but it just surrounds them.
Yes, everyone's got kids because it does. Everyone gets married. You're at an age now where people are going to start getting married. You'll know by the time you're 30, you'll know more people who are married than who are not, and then by the time you're 35, they'll all have children and you won't, and you won't have anything to talk about.
I have a friend who she went to a hen's night like a couple of weeks ago, and she was saying that she definitely knew she was the only non-mum there.
Oh, yeah. Right? Boring.
And I made a prediction that it would be 2 hours before it becomes mum chat.
Yeah.
And I was wrong.
It took 10 minutes?
It was 10 minutes.
Yeah.
It was like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm talking, what food is best? Your Jimmy falls asleep within an hour, and somehow it's a bragging thing. Oh, mine's in 20 minutes. And,
my one now knows how to go potty, and she's only 18 months old.
Yeah, and it was constantly checking on their phones to make sure the kid was all right. And,
oh my God! Yeah,
it's going to be a averagey type night when you get there, and they already start groundwork. For an early departure.
Yeah.
It's, Jimmy actually woke up really, like, he's feeling a bit ill. He's just a bit off, so not like, not serious enough, but
I have to admit though.
And then, I think I need to go home.
On that note, I would love to have a kid to be able to blame so I can go home early.
Oh.
Sorry guys, I've just had a text message. Something's going on with the babysitter. I have to go see you later.
You are.
Maybe I can have an imaginary child that does that.
You are. It's not a bad idea.
So people don't know. People wouldn't know that I don't have children. I'm at the age that my kids would be kind of oldish.
Because you're also untouchable.
That's right.
Kid stuff is untouchable.
That's right. You can't.
No one's going to question that.
No.
Yeah, and if you are, you're probably a bad person. I was going, prove it.
That's right. Prove it.
Prove the kids to.
Yeah.
Yep. You just got to get yourself into strive.
Because the amount of times I've managed to blame my husband, or my husband's blamed me for not having to go out to dinner that night. This
is a more controversial version of it. How people go on blind dates.
I'm going to make up a fake kid so I can get out of this shit. I'm so making up a fake kid.
You just make it up. You just need to get enough of it on your social media as well. Because you could probably not hire a kid, but, if you know someone's baby, because all babies look the same as well.
They do look the same.
You just have one, so people think you have one, and then...
Because the dog doesn't make enough of an impact.
No.
I couldn't argue, the dog needs me to be home early tonight. People just go, what is wrong with you crazy person?
That's not going to cut it.
It's not enough. I need to make up a fake kid.
Well... as I said, it's kind of like a more extreme version of the getting out of a Tinder date.
Yes.
Really? I'll come. I'll be there in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Make up a emergency as they get out of jail.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I did go on a date once, years ago, years and years and years ago. So I was 21 years old, and I had what would be affectionately called a blind date with a guy that I met while I was delivering pizza.
Yeah.
And we met at the cafe. This is in the middle of the day. I was waiting for him. He turned up. He ordered a glass of water. Told me within about 7 minutes that he was double parked.
So he's groundwork. He's
and he left. So he turned up, told me he was double parked, ordered the glass of water, in about 7 minutes he was gone. Clearly I was not what he expected. But it's
You should. I tell you what, if anyone wants some really good bad date content, is go onto Facebook and look up bad dates of Melbourne.
Really?
They post sort of one small little story a day, and it's just filled with stuff like that.
Oh my God, I've got a dozen of these bad dates. So that was the funniest
It's people
one.
who they organise something. They'll go to it's fairly not super fancy, but a nice-ish kind of restaurant, and this person will come and they're like wearing trackies and thongs, and they came there drunk, or they after being an hour late, and then had 3 beers and then disappeared and made the other person pay, and just horrendous stories. Or they might live on different parts of Melbourne, and it's an hour's journey, and the person's come all the way there only for them to stand them up.
Yeah.
Even though the person was coming to them.
Yeah.
And they just completely disappeared, and go on to there because there is just great content.
Oh, I've had because I did the dating scene, and I did this. Tinder wasn't around. I did this kind of online dating thing, so I had 3 or 4 dates a week, and yes, you do come across the odd banger.
What's the opposite of a diamond in the rough?
Oh,
it's like a
don't know. Your poo and a turd. Yeah.
a turd in the diamond.
Yeah,
somehow.
I don't know. You look at that because I've had the typical. You meet someone and the first thing they say is, "Hi, my name is blah. Did you know I own a Porsche?" and you have those dates. Those people actually existed.
I still do, by the way. They're still well and truly out there. I can tell you that.
And I ended up putting these people through what could only be described as their own personal hells, because I started, instead of having dates at cafes and pubs, I decided that I was going to have a date by doing something actually I liked, and I liked doing these walks. I would meet these people at these random ass train stations like Guildford or something like that, just kind of on the outskirts of London, to do a 3 or 4 mile pub walk.
Well,
so if they were really boring or stupid, I could just ignore them and do something I actually liked.
now I'm glad you brought this up, because I know that. So my best friend, my roommate, he does the exact same thing.
Does he?
No word of a lie. No word of a lie. He does the exact same thing.
I must have 20 dates that way. It was brilliant.
He'll say, "Oh, I'm going to Dennis." "Oh, mate, where are you taking it?" And he said, "I'm just going for a walk."
Yeah.
And I was like,
really?
"Why?" Your first. Why? And he says a couple of things. He says, he's gonna. This is gonna sound terrible for him.
No, please.
But he's not here to defend himself. He's like, "I don't want to spend the money.
No.
She might suck.
That's right.
And I don't want to spend the money."
And they might be really boring, and you're sitting there, and all you're doing is talking to them.
That's what he says.
It's like,
as well.
oh my God! So I started having all these dates where I made him go out and walk with me.
He goes for a walk, and he's also it also only goes for an hour.
Yep.
So it's not long.
Yep.
I did say to him, "Oh well, how's that all going for you?"
How's that going?
What's the success rate?
I think
pretty low. Pretty low.
Really?
Pretty low. I can tell you, it's pretty low. No, they're not lining up. So,
Actually, that was my favourite thing in the world. I just stopped having dates and just started arranging these walks.
He just goes for a walk.
It was actually brilliant. I really liked them. Does he enjoy himself?
Actually not.
You should ask, because he should. My recommendation is he should go places that he likes, because if the person he's dating is just super boring, really slow, whatever, just generally sucks, it doesn't matter.
Because you still had a good time.
Because you're still actually having a good time.
Oh, you probably say, "Oh, I've got some exercise."
Yeah, I got some exercise. You're out in the fresh air. You're seeing something pretty. I actually really like them.
Yeah, that's honestly. He is the exact same, and does it, and he stands by it. If you ask by him for a walk, then I'm sure they all feel very blessed.
Well, I actually think it's kind of nice, because it's one way where you don't have to keep staring each other in the face.
That's true as well.
and you can talk about things that you don't have. It's like I Spy. You're out there walking.
Yeah, you can comment on stuff that you come across.
You come across, so you don't have to make up conversation.
Yeah, you can also do that in a restaurant. You can just I Spy on people.
True, but that makes you look like an evil human being. Oh. But that would be super fun.
Ooh, so I'm feeling a little bit triggered here. I didn't realise I was committing a social
teasing what everybody else is eating. I don't know. Actually that's what I ended up doing. So instead of having dates at pubs or whatever.
It's good to know that
he's not alone.
As times stay the same, and it still absolutely goes on today. 25
years later, it still works.
The tactic still stacks up.
Still cheap.
It's still cheap. He hasn't spent any money,
it's still cheap. It's still easy.
You might get an ice cream.
What I used to do if I was going to be in London, it's actually quite evil. I'm exactly like your flatmate. Like sometimes I would take them to walk along the South Bank.
Yep.
And I'd go, let's go to this creperie. It's my favourite creperie. And we'd just go there and order and walk away, go over the wobbly bridge and come back again. Or I'd make them do something that they would find incredibly boring. Like I had these two favourite places to go indoors. Yeah. One of them was the Tate Modern. And I always liked looking at the Degas. And Degas is the one with the ballerinas. I've got one here. Not an actual Degas, a replica here. And I would bring them to...
on the day?
I would bring them on the day, because the Tate Modern's free to get into.
Yeah,
so I would get them there, and I'd get them to walk around so I could look at the things I liked at the Tate Modern, then would leave. I would look incredibly, highbrow and very cultured.
Very cultured. It's really just...
Really, it's just me having a good day while I'm around somebody else.
With a companion. Yeah. Someone to talk to.
That's what I used to do.
I think that's what he does.
I think he should absolutely.
He just likes walking, and he's just another person.
If he likes going to the Modern Museum, he should just walk them through that and look at all the things he likes.
But look, all I'll finish with is that I'm not sure he is wooing.
No, but you might find a companion. That's not necessarily about the
I'm not sure there are too many companions around. But certainly it's something that we could speak about. Well,
I always felt that if I found someone I could talk to, actually that's nice, and sparks and fireworks can come another day.
I'm sure it might. All right, and on that note,
probably we should finish.
Say goodbye, and we will speak to you guys next week.
Yep, thank you for watching and thank you for listening.